Today's AskReddit post. Men and women of Reddit who caught their significant others cheating. How did you do that? And what was your reaction? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. I caught my wife after she passed away from cancer. Worst feeling ever. Caught between unending love, mourning and absolute anger. Wow man, that is ducking tragic. Please tell me you're seeking help with working through that ocean of emotions. I smoked a pack of cigarettes a day and smoke weed every chance I could, and I was on prescription for hydrocodones that I started to abuse. I was on I didn't give a duck about anything phase that lasted a good while. A lot of times I didn't want to be around anymore. My family, friends and God are what pulled me through the worst of it. It's been 3 years since she passed and I'm the only one who knows about her other life. I didn't ruin her name to her friends or family but my image of her is forever shattered. I did forgive her eventually and I am now living with my girlfriend and am happy again. That's good to ducking here man. Goddamn. That sounds like some tough things you went through. I wish you and your close ones the best. This is almost word for word how the convo went. Me. You sleeping with so and so her. Yay me. Want a divorce? Her. Kinda me. Okay, I'll file tomorrow. I like how simple that went. Sometimes it's just done, you know? But I am curious, was it really as short as it sounds? Like neither of you make it worse? Oh yeah, it was a super civil conversation. We were just both at a point where we were just tired. Let's just rip the band-aid off and get it over with. I want to say congrats. I feel like that's so hard to do but easy at the same time. It also always makes me wonder, if you can be civil about cheating and divorce, why can't you be civil enough to move towards divorce before you've cheated? I know it's a touchy subject for some people and that they cheat to force it, but if you can be an adult, why not go the whole way? Maybe I'm failing to empathize here, I just really don't get it. Went for my yearly checkup and tested positive for chlamydia. Turns out my ex was sleeping around. Edit. Apparently false positives are common with these types of tests, so have yours so tested as well. I hope you're in a relationship where you can openly talk about such things. I caught my ex sexting a chick and telling her how he missed her on my birthday. I was young at the time and reacting with crying and yelling. If it ever happened now I would just get up and leave. No point in trying to mend the relationship because it's near impossible to gain the trust that was lost. Edit. Spelling error. Edit. Thanks for the award. It's really sad how many people have gone through this same experience. I hope all of you are in a better place now. A few years back I was dating this girl and ended up becoming really good friends with her brother. He appreciated me helping their family when their father died suddenly. 2 years into the relationship, asks to meet up for coffee and a serious talk. Apparently he caught his own sister with another guy, a mutual friend of ours. It had been going on for like a year. Broke up with her. Still friends with the brother. The end. What a bro. For real. It was clearly the right thing to do, but people underestimate how hard it is to do it. In fairness, you have no way of knowing how the cheated on person will take it. There are so many stories of people trying to do the right thing but the cheater shoots the messenger instead of being mad at the cheater. This happened a few years ago. I was hanging out with my boyfriend at the time and he had gotten a text while he was playing a video game and asked me to check it. When I opened up his messages, I saw a few messages from other girls he was messaging. My only regret was wasting a year of my youth with him. I had some really good friends in the next town over where my girlfriend lived, and they figured it out for me. They were super gentle about it, and patient with me through my denial. Those are real friends. A friend of mine was suspicious of her husband cheating, as he went to play soccer with friends way too often. He always came already showered as he would sweat playing. One day she sewed his soccer socks over, and when he came back all showered she saw the socks were still sewed, so he wasn't playing soccer at all. Edit. Spelled husband wrong. Edit 2. Woo, this blew up. Many people are commenting how this doesn't prove he was cheating, just that he was lying. She later confronted him and he was indeed cheating. Also, many are saying clean socks would have been enough evidence. And that's true. I guess she didn't think that deep about it. That's creative. Dated a girl for about 2 years. Like 18 months into the relationship we're talking about moving in together. Then kinda out of nowhere she starts becoming distant and irritable. We ended up breaking up. Fast forward 3 months after the breakup, I found that Facebook has a section where messages from non-friends are kept. Turns out my then GF was banging her ex and the UPS driver that delivered to her store at the mall. She ended getting with the UPS driver and his 3 kids. Last I checked, they're ducking miserable and it brings me joy every time I think about it. Edit. In my messages was a note from the UPS driver's then wife. My ex not only cheated but broke up a marriage. So the mailman memes aren't fiction after all. Most service guys have at least a story. I was in furniture delivery for years and some women are way too forward. Starts applying for furniture delivery jobs. The odds are good but the goods are odd. 4 years ago I was dating a girl who became distant and disinterested in a lot of things we both enjoy together. Despite attempts to talk about it, she only grew more distant, then became less available to hang out and suddenly was working late a lot. I started getting suspicious about cheating when she was on her phone non-stop. Again I tried to talk about it but she wouldn't engage. She also just didn't want to break up with me for whatever reason. I was actually going to end it on my own. But one weekend when she was seemingly unavailable, some mutual friends told me they spotted her with a dude from her work and they were all over each other. Coincidentally, she had also lent me her iPad and it was synced to her phone, so I saw lots of texts between those two over that weekend. They were talking about running away together, etc. He was married and her supervisor. Mutual friends were also composed of her co-workers and reported them to HR. They were both forced to do training on not sleeping with co-workers. They were both denied promotion. His wife left him, and she moved overseas. Sucked at the time. I was devastated. But karma got them good. What does that training even include? A single yes/no question asking is it okay to duck co-workers? I know you were kidding. But there isn't usually anything wrong with co-workers having a relationship if the relationship is peer-to-peer. The issues happen when there is a power imbalance. For example, 2 servers at a cafe dating usually isn't an issue. But if a server starts dating the manager, the person who controls the roster, pay rises, mediates disputes etc., then there is potentially an issue. To the best of my knowledge. And please, if anyone knows differently, let me know. It's illegal to stop people from dating at work. Just heavily discouraged because it is so easily exploited. I'm in Canada and it's also like this here. Not really an issue unless there's a power imbalance. I've never even really seen it be a problem, but I have seen it addressed as don't turn this into our problem. It wasn't a big damn breaking moment. It was a lot of little things. Like how she'd cancel plans at the last second. Or the random phone calls from unknown numbers she'd get. This was back before spam calls were an epidemic. Or how her phone was mysteriously off one night when I needed to get a hold of her. I had my suspicions and then finally it clicked into place when I did some Instagram snooping and found a guy who followed her who posted a selfie wearing a very unique jacket that belonged to her. I confronted her the next day. She denied it. Tears. Begging. All of that. I dumped her and walked away. The next day I messaged that guy on Instagram and he confirmed everything. Had no idea I existed. He dumped her too. Last I heard she's an EMT in Utah, Wyoming. Hope she figured out how not to be a garbage person. Spam calls were definitely an epidemic before Instagram existed, right? Your mileage may vary, but I wasn't getting a dozen spam calls a day to my cell 6 years ago. You're right. It was definitely a thing back then, but nowhere near as bad as it is now. They were pretty bad around 2005 to 2008ish, then died down because of a law passing a couple years ago. Maybe wrong on the time frame. I'm old and memory sucks. That law was tossed out or they stopped enforcing it and they came back with a vengeance. I was at work and tried to call my boyfriend, but he wasn't answering even after a few hours, and I just got a horrible feeling. It stressed me out so badly for some reason that I started to cry and my boss let me go home. The whole way home I just kept feeling serious dread. Walked in the house and into my bedroom, and he was laying in bed half clothed with some naked chick. Obviously a huge blow up went down. And after everything settled, this motherfucker tried to tell me that he went to the movies alone and met her there and she followed him home. Like, even if I believe that this person just followed you home and got naked, you let her do it. So what's the purpose of saying that to me? It was a shitty abusive relationship, and it didn't even end then. I eventually broke up with him, but not on the spot like I should have. If I could change anything about my life, it would be that I wish I broke up with that guy sooner. That was over 10 years ago though. Edit. Your responses are ducking hilarious. I have never laughed so much about this situation. I had my suspicions, but it was her who ended up telling me. I went into the relationship thinking, wow, I don't deserve this girl. Way out of my league. She couldn't help but remind me how much better he was several times and made sure to rub it in my face. My reaction was a spiral into deep depression. For someone that has very low self-esteem, being cheated on is one of the worst feelings. It feels like it confirms all your worst thoughts about yourself. Edit. I just want to say thanks to all the encouraging comments. This was some years ago and I'm in a happy relationship. I still struggle with depression, but I think even without this incident I'd still be depressed, but I'm working on it. To anyone currently experiencing this, it's not the end of the world despite it feeling that way. You are worth more than you know. And I know you will see that someday. I felt the same way out of my league about my ex, but believe me dude, duck that shit. There is nothing as way out of your league. I stopped thinking I was lucky to date beautiful women and instead started thinking, getting a beautiful woman is not a big deal for me, and that changed a lot of things and real life happened as I imagined. You act how you think, remember that. It's a tough lesson, but one I'm glad to have learned from. I still think I'm lucky to have my current so. Not just because she's beautiful, but because she's kind and caring too. My advice to anyone heartbroken is no one is worth throwing your life away for. The husband of one of the women he was cheating on me with called me at work. At first I didn't believe him and hung up. How could the man I spent the past 8 years with, had 2 beautiful babies with, suffered together the loss of one of those children do something so hurtful? Still a part of me had doubt. He had affairs in other relationships and we had a rocky patch early in the beginning where I suspected an affair but didn't have proof. I told my boss I felt sick and had to leave early, and I called this guy back and found out that my ex and his wife along with one of their friends were all sleeping together for about a year. He had confronted my ex and told him that he was going to tell me, but my ex convinced him to wait a month since my mother had just died. I took my time coming home and confronted him and told him to pack and leave. Since I've pieced together a lot of what happened and all the lies he told me, where if I was in a different headspace I might have caught onto the affairs earlier. I also found videos hidden on one of our computers and found out he was having booty calls in our apartment while I was at work and he was watching our daughter. At that point it put the headstone on any possibility of reconciliation. I found a used condom on the bathroom floor. I just emailed him a 30-day end of tenancy notice. I own the house. I'm assuming the cheating was confirmed in this case, and it wasn't just him having a posh wank. Do guys really jack off with condoms? I've done it before, and more just to figure out how to use a condom, and to see if it felt different. Yay. Did it once when I was like 13 out of sheer curiosity, and then never again. He took a phone call from her in front of me, and because, I guess, he thought he was being slick, he started flirting with her in front of me. He ended up sexually harassing me after the relationship was over, and I got him in hot water for that. He never did it again and was told if he even talked to me again, he'd get fired. I ended up leaving that job a few months later. What the heck? How was he flirting with her in front of you? That sounds so ridiculous. I can't think of any way that wouldn't have immediately gotten him caught. He called her and started using the flirty tone of voice I happen to be very familiar with. It doesn't work when you try to flirt with one paramour in front of another. That reminded me of my cheating ex. For whatever reason we made a kissing noise when saying bye to each other and were out of kissing distance. I caught him doing that to someone in person that wouldn't physically look me in the eye. Red flags were already up in the air because of how she was acting, and then when he made that noise, I lost it. I knew he had been unfaithful in the past, but I didn't really love him, so it was not that bad. However, I was bartending one night and this drunk chick walks up and tells me that I looked familiar. She then proceeds to yell, "Oh, my friend is ducking your husband." So I walked into the beer keg cooler with a bottle of vodka. I downed some shots and went back to work. I held it in that I knew for a few months while I hired an attorney and figured out my next move. I had 3 kids to think of too, so I moved with my kids back home to Texas and got divorced. Now, I'm engaged to my childhood best friend and we plan to marry in Yosemite next year. He's the complete opposite of my ex. Kind, supportive, and loving. So duck that Sasquatch looking cheater. She then proceeds to yell, "Oh, my friend is ducking your husband." The layers of this stranger making this statement are just crazy. Bitch deserves a slap and a handshake. Compromise and just hold her cheek firmly and wobble it up and down. Back then Facebook used to display on your profile stuff like "don't say" or "to" liked a photo and everything you did. I noticed he liked a photo of a girl that seemed to be someone he had recently added. So I checked her profile and she was one of those girls who think they won because men cheat on their partners with them. She had everything public. Photos with him, bragging about the texts they exchanged, etc. So I engineered a way to befriend her roommate. I would then find out she was bringing other dudes home besides my boyfriend, and when I confronted him I also let him know about who else she was sleeping with and for him to get an STD test. That's actually kind of you to let your, I'm assuming, ex-BF to get a STD from having proof. Edit. Grammar. Thanks to a fellow redditor. I get the sense it was not done out of kindness. I guess so. But I finally have a comment that's almost over 100 upvotes. Ex-wife actually asked me for her blessing to commit adultery with another married man. She was shocked when I said I don't support it. She went ballistic, has severe mental health issues, went and did it anyway and ended up in a psych ward. 2 marriages ended and now the 2 cheaters are engaged. Little devastated at first. Blessing in disguise. What was she expecting of you? Glad you feel better now. Some people just feel that if they ask, then you must allow them. Asking isn't about consent for these people. It's about showing how good people they are. We were engaged, and it was about 4 months to the wedding. It was her birthday, and a Friday. We had both wanted to see Blue Man Group for a while, so I had ordered tickets to For Us. Being a Friday, I took off half a day to surprise her. There was an unknown car in the drive, and the garage was open, which was extremely unusual. It also happened to bypass the camera we had facing the front door. I go in through the garage to hear the unmistakable sounds of sex in our bedroom. I had no clue who the guy was, but he was balls deep in her ass. She had the nerve to say that anal doesn't count. I ended our relationship then and there, which her family claimed broke her. The last time I looked her up a couple years ago, she had had 2 kids with 2 different guys, and had spent time in prison for meth. It was a small town, so no surprises there. Her family still make me out to be the bad guy in the relationship when I ended it because I didn't forgive her. Worst of all, I never did get to see Blue Man Group in person. That is worst of all. The Blue Man Group was amazing. I was in the Navy and was out on deployment for 6 months after just recently getting engaged. It's one of those stupid things that young military guys do. One day I get a letter from my fiance's best friend telling me that she caught my fiancé and her BF together. This was years before email and smartphones were common. We write back and forth several times and eventually it comes out how she caught them. How my fiancé begged her not to tell me, and that the fiancé didn't know that we were corresponding. I eventually get back to the States and plan to play it off as though I didn't know, but too many of my friends intercepted me with the news that it wasn't just the one guy, but several, and let me know that she knew that I was aware. Eventually we met, and the confrontation was minimal and tame. We broke off the engagement without a lot of drama. She kept the ring. The best friend and I ended up hooking up. At first a sort of a revenge duck kinda thing, but turned serious. We celebrate our 32nd wedding anniversary this year. Right on, that's a great ending to a shitty situation. I didn't catch her. She told me I wasn't a real man and that's why she did it. She just told me everything she hated about me. Went on to why I'm worthless, pulled over, kicked me out the car and I had to walk back to my place. As far as my reaction went, I went home, cried, went to bed, stayed in bed for a few days, thought I was a terrible person for a few weeks, cut my holiday leave short and went back to work early to get my mind off things. Edit. This was a while ago now and I'm definitely in a much better place in my life. Damn, that's brutal. Was that kind of treatment normal in the relationship? Why would you ever want to hurt someone like that? For the most part it wasn't normal, but it slowly started happening around a month or so before she ended it with me. It started with simple things like you are actually pretty dumb or I could be with better looking guys, and then it turned into something more frequent and more spiteful. Then that car ride and everything she said. That's plain abuse. F that chick. You're better off without her. The best revenge is living out your best life. Well, I'm definitely living my best life now. I got accepted into a great university doing a course I love. I have a fiancé who truly cares about me and I'm not in my dream job yet, but I am working towards it and I'm getting closer by the day. I still think back on it from time to time, but just knowing I am out of that situation and I'm getting closer to achieving my goals pushes those thoughts further away. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.